Section 3.2 in the Gaddis textbook is on mathematical expressions. And so we are going to look at several different examples that they have in the source code, and that will cover these topics. Before we look at the source code examples, I just want to review a definition here, and that is expression, it says, can be a constant, a variable, or a combination of both. And so if we take a look at the next slide, I want to point out a couple of things. So the number 2 is, for us, that's like a number that stays the same. They would call this a literal value. And then pi or pi is going to be, it could be declared as what we call a constant in C++ as a value that does not change in a program. And then the variable would be radius. And so I believe the textbook was kind of referring to the number 2 maybe being a constant and the fact that it doesn't change, but I would call that more of a numeric literal, and then the pi would be a constant, and I'll show you how we can create that in code here in just a moment. We are going to be taking a look at, this is program 3-06 from the source code file, and we're going to look at several things here and use how to use some of the functions in the math library. This particular one is going to look at using a power function, and it says that we need to use the pound include cmath in order to use the power function. So one thing, anytime you see a new pound include up here, you probably want to go to the c++.com website and type it in up here underneath search, because you want to investigate this just a little bit. And so that brings up what's called the math library, and the math.h would be the legacy or the older version of that. But the new, using the namespace standard, the cmath is going to be our newer version of that. So if I scroll down here, I'm looking for the pow function, because that's the one that we're going to use. If I click on this, it digs in a little bit deeper, and I can scroll down and it'll tell me all kinds of information. The base is the base value. Those are my parameters it's talking about. It takes 2 parameters. I know that right here. This is the method signature right here. So a method signature has the return type, has the name of the function. We've got the 2 parameters. They are both double in this case. The first one is the base and the second one is the exponent. And so for us, it seems it makes sense that I'm taking a base raised to a power. So the base value is base value and exponent is exponent. But it's very explicit on telling you what everything represents, because somebody might not have English as their first language, and so this would be, we want to make it as explicit as possible as far as explaining that. And that's what happens here in the in this website. This is your reference for everything C++. So now if I go down here, it gives me examples. Now this is using a printf, which is a print format command. We're not going to talk about that right now. But what I want to pay attention to here is that it has the an example of how to use the pow function. So it's POW, left parens, first argument, second argument, and so that's going to take 7 cubed, which is 343. So using this particular site gives you lots of examples, etc., and you can always go back, or you can always actually look over here and probably click on cmath to get back to just the generic library and look up anything that you might need to know for math functions. Getting back to our example then, so anytime you have a new library, check it out, see what's kind of going on there. This one's just going to calculate the area of a circle, and so we know that that's pi r squared, and so here's the area is 3.14159 times the power of radius squared, and so it calculates. Now if I click execute, I'm going to run into a problem, and I just wanted to maybe show this to you because I get this error that says, if your program reads input, please enter the inputs in standard input box above or enable interactive mode. So it looks like we could put a value in here, I don't know, and hit execute. I've never tried this before, and it actually works. Or we turn on interactive mode, which is what I prefer, and hit execute and just pick a value for the radius, and area is 16.619. Okay, now we're going to investigate this just a little bit more and look at a couple of things. First of all, whenever you have a value like pi, which is 3.14159, I would recommend that you create a variable for that. And in C++, because, or when a value we have like pi doesn't change, we create that as a constant. const is a constant. Data type on the constant in this case is going to be double, and I'm going to assign it to pi, and it's going to be 3.14159. Then I can use that variable in my code down here and execute, input a value for the radius, and we get a result. This is a better programming practice to use a variable here. So then it's actually more readable. I can, as far as it's pi times radius squared. Another thing that we can do, sometimes a math library has a built-in constant. So I went back where I did a search and I just Googled, I don't remember what I Googled, but I tried to search to see if there was a constant of pi in C++, and I got this response. Notice it's back on cplus.com, so this is a trustworthy source, and there's a question answer here. So this is kind of like a forum, and the question was, is there a function in the library that tells us the value of pi? Nope. And it says it's not standard. Some implementations use a special pound define directive or m_pi in the cmath. So it appears that there might be something called m_pi that I could use, or they also say it's probably just as good to declare it. This is how I would declare it though, kind of like I did, except they did more values. Now they are using a lowercase pi, probably because the capital Pi is often reserved in some languages as a constant. But let's go back to our code, investigate this just a little bit more. I am going to comment out this line of code. I'm going to try to execute it and see if it does accept pi. Maybe there is one defined in the cmath like that. Doesn't like that, but pay attention to the error message. This is probably more important than anything. Pi was not declared in this scope. That means it can't find it. It doesn't know what it means. If I remember from what I read, there was an m_pi. So I'm going to click execute and see if this works, and that does. So what that's telling me, and what I'm reading here, if I go back to look at this, is that, and now I lost where we read it from, m_pi, oh right here, or you could use m_pi in the cmath library. So that means that somewhere in cmath there must have been some type of a, I'm going to type in pi, and let it search, and it doesn't seem to be giving me what I want. I'm going to try pi. Doesn't work there. Constants in cmath. This gives you an example of where you need to go fishing to find some things. And these are all just taking me to different websites, and I really don't want that. I really thought that I would be able to pull it up if I do m_pi, which is what I used in my program. Interesting. It also doesn't bring me anything. So I am curious now, because it said that it was in the cmath library, but I'm not seeing it here anywhere. So don't know where it's coming from, but we can use it. So now if I go back, so that's actually an example, and you can use C++ for a very long time and you learn something new all the time. So you can use that m_pi, or you can declare your own constant of pi. One last way that you can declare or define pi is actually using what's called a pound define directive. and you can declare it outside of the main. Oh, I'm getting lazy right now. I don't want to type all those things, so we'll just do 3.14. And I don't know if I have this syntax quite correct. Actually, I'm pretty sure I don't. I don't think I need to use an equal. If I hit execute, 3.2, and it calculates value. So you can use what's called a pound to find before main, and you can declare basically what you're saying when you do this is that anywhere you see these two matching characters P and I, you're going to substitute this into the code, and we'll show you how that works a little bit later on in the class with some other things. All right, that's our introduction to the math functions. We learned how to go to and use the cmath library. We learned how to take a look at using a particular function, the pow function. We looked at how to declare a constant using the keyword const. I know it was a keyword because look at how it highlighted. And we also looked at a pound to find. And then we also learned, even though we removed it, we also learned that you could use an m underscore pi in the code. All right, that wraps up this one. We are not done with the math functions, but that's going to be this video.